Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Ask the Doctor. Tonight is super, super amazing. We've got a lot to cover. It's hard to believe that this is the last Ask the Doctor of 2022. So how fitting that he's going to go over the top lessons for health, happiness, and success that we've seen over the year. The man of the hour teaches, trains, and lectures doctors all over the world. He's an incredible man in general, a family man. He's got a thriving practice, and he's here to help everybody that he meets succeed. Without any further ado, the amazing Dr. Bob Rakowski.
Well, Carol, thank you always for the sweet, wonderful introduction. 2022, an interesting and powerful year. And I think a lot of people experience multiple ends of the spectrum. We're going to look at the top lessons for all of 7 life areas. As I like to tell people, we're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, impactful. All those things work together, as do health, happiness, and success. So you did a great job explaining my background over 3 decades of working with all category patients, from the most elite in the history of the planet to people sent home to die. And I always say, thankfully, some of these people are alive decades later, and I have taught health seminars to doctors on 6 different continents, over 10,000 hours worth. So I have an absolute passion for health. I also have come to realize that there's a wisdom of 7s. You know, you look at the 7 C's, the 7 dwarfs, the 7 brides for 7 brothers, the 7 continents, the Magnificent 7. Tom Morris talks about the 7 C's of success. We come to realize that there's some pretty magic to 7. So, you know, for health, I've always said, eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right every day. That's 7 if you're counting them. And, you know, what about our life? Well, we're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, and impactful. And I want to cover the top rules of this last year. And really these lessons could be timeless. So if you had to pick what is mental, we might choose the word focus from the beginning as being the top superpower of the mind, because if you can focus on something, you have a much better probability of making that happen. And in fact, there are even books written about just that topic. So the law of focus says whatever you focus on grows or expands. So why not focus on more of the things you want, and certainly less of the things that you don't want? So, you know, it seems like it was 30 years ago, a mentor of mine said, Bob, just stop watching the news. There's nothing's going to happen that you need to be informed about. You know, the world will talk about if you need to know. But there was this mindset, if it bleeds, it leads. So Michelle Gielan basically grew up wanting to be an anchor woman. And then ultimately she got a job as a news anchor woman, and she couldn't stand it. She said, oh my gosh, you know, literally when they started talking about their philosophy, if it bleeds, it leads. And all they ever wanted to share was bad information. She had to walk away from that. Awesome book, Broadcasting Happiness, which is a pretty good lesson in itself. But when you look at over the last couple of years, a global increase in both men and women and depression and anxiety. And I really think that that's because people were focused on, could we call it propaganda? Could we call it censored information? Could we call it fear mongering? Well, maybe all of the above. And if you're always exposed to that, you know, you might have some interesting and unfun thoughts. But this was a TED Talk done over 15 years ago. This gentleman, Larry Brilliant, what a brilliant name. His job was to help to eradicate smallpox from the planet, which he did. And so his TED Talk was talking about how to stop the next pandemic. And notice what he said, mass vaccination wouldn't work. And he wasn't just talking about smallpox, he's talking about really any pandemic. There's a lot of flaws to vaccines. These organisms mutate over time. So mass vaccination, he said, absolutely would not work. So what did he say? They went door to door, literally showing cases of smallpox, asking people, have you seen something like this? Have you seen something like this? And notice what they said, every single house in India, 150,000 volunteers, because that was the last country from it to be eradicated. And quite simply here, he said, was the answer: early detection, early response. So remember, the rule is it's easier to stay out of trouble than get out of trouble. So stay healthy, stay fit, stay strong, avoid stress, avoid sugar. And if you have something, really go after it. You know, Joe Rogan did that, got rid of this virus in a matter of days, and he got blasted because he didn't follow the standard medical protocol. By the way, I also had the virus, no big deal. Several hundred of my patients had it, no big deal. My 81-year-old parents had it. They were over it in a week. So how bad was this? With the right response, not bad. Now, talking about focus, I love this quote from essentially Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn said, every single day, stand guard at the door of your mind, and you alone decide what thoughts and beliefs you let into your life. These thoughts and beliefs will shape whether you feel rich, poor, cursed, or blessed. So think about that for a moment. How about focus on all good things and the things that you want? And final comments on this. Robin Sharma, one of my favorite authors, he talks about a tight bubble of total focus, or his TBTF. And very, very simply create a distraction-free zone to focus on whatever's important for you. And he calls it the 90-91 rule. He says, you know what, for the first 90 minutes for 90 straight days, work on the one thing's most important to you. It might be your fitness, it might be your health, it might be your finance, whatever it is, you pick and dedicate those 90 minutes. Cal Newport called that deep work. So focus being a superpower, optimize your superpower by creating an environment that allows it, and stand guard at the door of your mind. So when it comes to physical, I like the word vitality, like essential to life, like being all that wonderful energy, being able to do essentially whatever you want to do. And I'm going to transition to a book and a new documentary called Stutz. Stutz is S-T-U-T-S. If you look closely, that is the name, Phil Stutz. That is psychiatrist Phil Stutz. And there he's talking to Jonah Hill. And he taught Jonah Hill some tools to deal with some issues that he wasn't having success dealing with, which, by the way, were mostly that of mental health. So very, very simply, Stutz had what he called a life force model. Vitality could be called our life force. And ultimately, he says, number one, your relationship with your physical body. If you take really good care of your body will take care of you. Relationship with other people, take care of those around you, they'll take care of you. And yourself. Now, what's fascinating about this model is he separated yourself, who you really are, from your physical body, because certainly we're a lot more than that. And Robin Sharma, I'll come back to him. He says, remember that when you transform your fitness, you'll transform your business. He was a big fan, saying, if you're fitter and stronger, you're going to think better, and likely all aspects of your life will get better. And by the way, Steve Jobs, every important meeting that he had, or not everyone, but most important meetings, he would have walking and talking meetings. And he said, you know why? Because I think better when I walk. So Jonah Hill blew up to over 300 pounds at one point in time, hired a good chef, got a good coach, and committed. There's the thing. He committed to transforming his physical body. Really epic transformation. And, what are the big three for our physical wellness? I've talked about the Magnificent Seven, but let's focus on these three: eat, move, and sleep. Tom Rath, Amazon.com's top-selling author, basically lost an eyeball to cancer at age 15. He was told, sorry, you lost a genetic lottery. You have tumors in your liver, in your kidneys, in your spleen, in your spine, in your ribs, in your pancreas. You'll never see your 37th birthday. You'll probably, always be miserable and in pain. And by the way, don't ever think about getting married, because you'll likely give this to your kids. Well, in that picture, he's 45 years old. He's a picture of health. He has two beautiful, healthy daughters. He did get married. He does have a good life. And here's what he found out. When he eats right for him, and you need to find out what it is for you, his tumors shrink. When he moves right for him, and you need to find out what it is for you, his tumors shrink. And when he sleeps right for him, which is almost universal, 8.6 hours a night, his tumors shrink. So all those are really, really powerful ways to get better. Emotion could be appreciation. And I like that word because when something appreciates, or when you appreciate something, you add value to it. And we're going to actually also use other words like thankfulness and gratitude, because those are really good synonyms. And I'll put in a plug for my favorite book this year, Twist. I have a beautiful friend, and I had a beautiful friend. So the beautiful friend I lost was Jessica Peterson. And as she was in her last year of life, she was writing down some of the things that she learned. And Heather Fedwa, her best friend, another beautiful human, helped her with that in the final steps of it. And I also helped with the final editing and wrote the foreword to it. But, we've all heard that when life gives us lemons, why not make lemonade? Well, twist, the acronym is to be thankful, put things in writing because it'll cement it deeper into your brain. Intention is very, very powerful. So always have good intentions, whatever you're doing. Service, be of service. You'll always have someone to serve. And then training. All of life is essentially training, but we're on the thankfulness. And in the book, they say you want to be thankful for what was, what is, and what will be. And sometimes that's challenging because I know a lot of people have gone through some very, very challenging times. But in time, a lot of people begin to realize that things that we thought were horrible maybe turned out to be a blessing in disguise. And I hope that's something that you find for whatever you've been through. So what's the opposite of thankful? How about ungrateful, thankless, unappreciative, unthankful, dissatisfied, heartbroken, critical, melancholy, desolate? Yeah, we probably wouldn't want to be any of those things, but sometimes it's helpful to think in things of their opposites. Art Williams, a billionaire, he actually took on the whole insurance industry when he found out that they were not serving their customers well. And he started a business called A.L. Williams that later became Primerica, and beat all of the top insurance companies in the world by being an outstanding leader. And here's one thing he would say: no one will follow a negative, dull, disillusioned, frustrated, dadgum crybaby. Well, those are the things that are opposite of thankful. So be thankful, be appreciative. And here's a simple neurologic fact. This is out of University of California, Davis. It's impossible to feel envious and grateful at the same time, or really any negative emotion and a positive emotion at the same time. When people experience gratitude, they lower the stress hormones in their blood by 23%. And by the way, they didn't quantify the number there, but my favorite superfood, Ganoderma lucidum, also lowers the stress hormones in the bloodstream. Also functions as an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety. But ultimately, here's what my mentors have taught for probably centuries, even those that preceded me and on planet Earth. But gratitude opens the floodgates to abundance. Whatever you're grateful for, you will likely see more of. So why not make it a consistent practice to write down every single day things that you are thankful for? When it comes to spiritual, Tom Morris' definition of spirituality is actually unity, essentially realizing that we all come from the exact same source. Now, it doesn't matter what your belief system is, whether you believe in a God or whether you believe in a Big Bang or whatever. I don't think those things are contradicted. The people that believe in the Big Bang say, yeah, that just came from nowhere. People that believe in God say, no, God created the Big Bang and everything after that. But ultimately, if we all come from the same source, do we have the possibility of partnering with infinite? And I believe the answer is yes. Now, I love this TED Talk by Tom Chi, an astrophysicist. The title of it is Everything's Connected, Here's How. And he says, I'm going to tell you a story of the heart, the breath, and the mind. And I'm going to take it all back to the Big Bang. So we go back, 14 billion years ago, or however long it was. There was this big ball of energy. There was really no matter. And by the way, that's how Einstein came up with E equals mc squared. Enough energy and you can create matter. Well, they said you had these super galactic collisions that ultimately led to the formation of all of the atoms, including iron. And without iron, we couldn't have hemoglobin. If hemoglobin didn't carry oxygen in our blood, we wouldn't even have a reason for a heart. But then he says, all right, let's talk about the breath, because if we go back on Earth 3.5 billion years ago, the Earth's surface was full of volcanoes releasing carbon dioxide, water vapor, and nitrogen. But notice it didn't say anything about oxygen. So this little microscopic bacteria that's a relative of cyanobacteria had a very short life, only just days to maybe a few weeks. But ultimately, these tiny little bacteria would breathe in carbon dioxide and they would actually exhale oxygen. So just like the plants do today. So these little organisms started it all. And Tom Chi says something interesting in his TED Talk. He says, imagine you're one of these little organisms. You're microscopic. You have a very short life. You might be asking yourself, how am I ever going to make a difference? Well, look at that. Collectively, look at what the cyanobacteria did. Together, right? Everyone achieves more. That's the acronym TEAM, a whole team of them. And we'll talk a little bit more about teamwork when it comes to the financial component. And then finally he says, look, every year the palette of being expands. What we can be tomorrow, it might be very different than what we can be today. So he talks about, prior to 1709, there was no piano, so someone couldn't be a concert pianist. And I don't know when people started being astrophysicists, but it seems like that'd be in the last 100 years. So even what he does for a living didn't exist 100 years ago. When it comes to social, the dog, man's best friend, very, very powerful. I grew up with a lot of dogs and I thought, I'm dogged out. I don't want to have any more dogs, but we still have dogs. And we have a rescue dog that probably is my best friend. He's always happy to see me. He's always wonderful. He protects the house. He's a good dog. But I like this quote. It said, the world would be a nicer place if everyone had the ability to love as unconditionally as a dog. And there's one of those funny internet jokes, and it was written for guys. So it said, if you locked your girlfriend and your dog in the trunk of your car for 3 days, which of them would be happy to see you when you open the trunk? So that makes an odd point. So can we love unconditionally? I think that's what we're here to do, really, unconditionally and creatively. So dog is a really good example of that. Every January 1 for probably 20 years, I would read either the whole book or the highlights of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I just thought it was a classic and something really good to focus on. But Dale Carnegie said this, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interesting to other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get others interested in you. So if we're going to be a friend, if you're going to make friends, be a friend, and listening is probably the top skill. When it comes to financial, I always go back to Zig Ziglar, one of my wonderful mentors, met him in person in the early 1990s, read dozens of his books, probably, thousands of hours out of his audios. And he was very, very powerful. He struggled as a speaker initially. And then he said, what, I ultimately learned to tell people the things they needed to hear in a way they wanted to hear it, which meant he became a master storyteller. And that's probably a skill we can all cultivate. But here's what Zig Ziglar said. It was Ziglar's law. You can have everything in life that you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And you know what? When I heard him say that, I said, okay, that's my ticket. I can do that. I can help people. And the more I help, the better off I'll be. And you know what? I found that to be true. So I will encourage you to apply Ziglar's law. And while we're talking about financial, we'll talk about the value of teamwork. So this was an African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We can certainly go much further together. And I remember John Maxwell saying, as he matured, he changed his mindset from how fast can I get there to how far can I go? And far wins. We all want to go further in life. And then some financial wisdom. Your network is your net worth. And so all of these sages of wisdom in the documentary Rise of the Entrepreneur talk about the value of building networks, but especially network marketing, because you get mentored by multiple millionaires, you get partnered with successful companies. It's the easiest, lowest risk reward thing in all of business. And that was clearly the best business decision that I've ever made in my entire life. And this guy, Peter Thiel, is a billionaire. He's, I think, number 673 richest guy in the world, net worth $4.1 billion. And he's pretty young, but he said this, he said, superior sales and distribution by itself can create a monopoly, even with no product differentiation. And very, very simply, network marketing, if you combine that superior distribution model along with great products, you've really got a winning combination. And again, I found that. So impactful, I was reminded about this, especially this ripple effect, this ripple theory from rewatching It's a Wonderful Life. If you haven't seen that, that's my favorite Christmas movie of all time. But this guy gets into financial trouble. Those are the two major things that bother people most, relationships and finances. And, he has a debt that he can't see paying off. So he decides, enough's enough. I'm going to kill myself. And so suddenly he's looking down in the water. He's about to jump off a bridge. And there's a guy that's in there splashing around. He jumps in to save him. And ultimately, he jumps in, George Bailey's his name, and says, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" The guy says, "I jumped in to save you." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I knew you were going to jump, but I also knew you'd save me. So what's going on?" Well, they start talking, and this guy's a guardian angel. And George Bailey says, "I wish I never were born." And Clarence, the guardian angel, shows him life if he hadn't been born. Now, let's put it this way. The little things that he did, sometimes not so little, like saving his brother from drowning and who ultimately became a war hero and other things like that. You never know what that ripple effect will be, but keep making good ripples. And Stephen Covey says this, our purpose in life is to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. And he also says that that's really the spiritual component of life. And he was an absolute sage of wisdom. And so we're all here to live. Okay, that's our physical body. We're all here to love. That's going to be those wonderful relationships. We're all here to learn. That's going to be a wonderful brain. And then how about to leave a legacy? Well, that would be spiritual. And that will wrap up the top lessons that I've had for the year. So any questions about any of those, or do you have any of yours that you'd like to share?
Well, there's a lot to wrap the year up with, right, everybody? Yeah. So, Nick, do you have any questions for us this time around? Or any comments for the year?
Not at this time, just reflecting on everything in my own life and what it means. Some very wise words to reflect on. So thank you, Dr. Bob.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. Happy, beautiful Christmas and
same
after
to you.
Christmas, and happy, beautiful 2023 to you and all.
Thank you.
It's hard to believe we're rolling into a new year. This is a great bit of momentum to get us to start thinking before we start celebrating and start, I guess, for me, it's starting over. It's always nice to have a fresh, clean slate, but definitely something for us to ponder on. Does anyone else have any comments? We'd love to hear from you guys tonight. Nancy, how about you? Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
I'm not sure if, can you hear me okay? I've got a new setup here.
Loud and clear.
I just wanted to thank you for all the information that you always pack into each presentation and for being so consistent.
Well, Kathy, thank you. It's good to see your wonderful, beautiful face. And I always appreciate the kind response. And you know what? I just love doing this. I found my little niche. I love learning and sharing, and this is a great venue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Nance.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Bob. I was just typing in the chat, actually, when you asked me to speak, that It's a Wonderful Life is Paul's favorite too. And I always learn something. I took some good notes, and I want to look up the TED Talk by Tom Chi. So thank you again. Just intriguing information always something different.
Well, you're very welcome. Always good to see your beautiful face. And I'll even have a hug for you and Carol and
very soon.
Nick and my Canada family. It's about 3.5 weeks away.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yes. Janelle, Rhoda, anybody? Nope. Quiet tonight. Okay.
Well, I'm going to wrap up with my favorite questions, which I learned from Jim Rohn, the same guy that launched Tony Robbins. He would wrap up anything like this. The first question was, why? Why'd you commit the time to join us tonight? And every week for some of you. And his second question is the answer to the first. Why not? Why not learn about something that, like Nancy, you can dig into deeper? Because any one of these topics can go really, really deep. Third question is, why not you? Someone's going to build on what was said and build a better life and add value to many. The final question is, why not now? So the longer we wait to act on information, the least likely we are to do that. I trust Nancy will already find that. And if you found something that pushes your buttons, dive in, enjoy it, and by all means, share it with the world. So I guess that's the last one of 2022. We'll start again 2023. Good night, all, and God bless.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Thank you, Carol.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.